What is the coolest thing you have done by accident? I was shit-faced rolling last Saturday night out at the bars and heard someone screaming inside this cookie joint at like 2 AM. So I drunkenly ran in because from the window it looked like an old friend of mine and I thought maybe something was wrong. I get inside and decide I want to just surprise him by running up and hugging the f-king shitty out of him from behind. So I wrap my arms around him and scream get WHO Mothfka. All of a sudden, the few other people in this cookie shop run over and tackle us to the ground. I'm beyond f-ked up. So I just lay there with my arms locked around my friend while people are on top of us. Someone then shouts I got his gun. Yep. Not only was this guy not my friend, but he was in fact robbing this place. I had just drunkenly stopped a f-king robbery. Apparently when I hugged him and shouted guess who, he got so scared that he dropped his gun, allowing the other people to rush in and subdue him. We were playing a game of dodgeball, and since there were too much people on the benches, the coach decided to add a rule. Anyone who can throw the ball directly into the basketball goal, spelling, comma, can immediately deliver everyone. I had one of the balls in hand when he said that, and the moment he signaled the game to continue, I threw the ball randomly because I have the worst aim ever, and it somehow went straight into it. I never managed to pull it off a second time. But boy was I proud for the entirety of that day. I had headphones in walking downtown a busy street. A kid almost hit me with his bike coming down the driveway, so I stopped it by the handlebars. The mom came running down the driveway and I was thinking oh great. A Karen. After taking my headphones out she thanked me in a panic for stopping her son from flying into the street as a car passed by. Never noticed it drive by. I stopped a lady at a crosswalk because her underwear was hanging out of the back of her skirt. Looked like a mistake in the bathroom maybe. She stepped back off the crosswalk and about 2 seconds later a vehicle making a left turn at high speed smashed into parked cars right next to where she would have been standing. She would have been dead. That's amazing. Good thing you weren't too embarrassed to tell her about her skirt. A guy did that once to tell me my dress was stuck to my backpack and my underwear was hanging out. And I really appreciated it. And he didn't even also save my life. Scored a goal in a soccer game. I'm lousy at sports. Always have been. But, in 7th grade, I signed up for a lunch break soccer tournament. As expected, I was awful. All I could do was run around and get in the way of the opposing team. But one day, I was near the goal defended by the other team while nearly all the other players were heading back from the other end of the field. One of my teammates kicked the ball hard in my direction. Someone yelled my name. I saw the ball. I put up my hands to block it. Remember that hands aren't allowed in soccer. And ducked. The ball hit my head and bounced straight toward and into the goal. Much to everyone's utter amazement. We won that game. I never played soccer again. High school. Walked by 2 kids in the hallway. Kid 1 playfully threw water bottle at Kid 2's back just as we passed each other. The bottle bounced off and I caught it with my hand without looking or even turning my head. And I just had a blank nonchalant expression as I did that. I handed it back to them with a poker face. But I was actually losing my mind and felt like f-king Spider-Man lol. I did the same thing with pasta falling off a supermarket shelf and the guy next to me actually complimented it. I made my selection pretty quick and went to go smile somewhere else haha. First bartending shift ever. Picked up a bottle of fairly expensive liquor, Patronio. Slipped from my hand. Held out my foot to slow the fall of the bottle to lessen the spread of shattered glass. And the bottle ended up resting on my outstretched foot completely unharmed. The one customer that was there, slow opening shift, saw the whole thing and freaked out. Thinking I've been bartending for decades. I've never felt prouder of my reflexes. Accidentally corrected a skid when I lost control of my car on an icy road. I hit my brakes too hard and noticed my car started to drift to the left. Instinctively, I let off the gas and turned my steering wheel left into the drift. And my car went back to driving in a straight line. I once drove a friend home from school during the winter. And the side streets were icy. I said watch this and attempted a shitty drift into his driveway. But I actually did it and it looked cool. Another time in high school I was getting home from work late on icy side street. So I hit a corner to snowdrift around it. But a car was coming. Fortunately the drift completely failed and I slid right past it in front of it lol. Waitressing in college, I was carrying a huge tray of dirty dishes from the dining room to the kitchen down a little hallway. I slipped on some water. Went down hard on my butt but managed to keep the tray perfectly level and didn't spill a thing. Not a major achievement but kept me from having to clean for the next half hour. I hurdled a little girl, maybe 4 or 5, and her golden retriever on my rollerblades, and nailed the landing. No idea how I jumped that high and stayed in the air that long. Neither of us were paying attention. She just stepped onto the sidewalk and I had tunnel vision going and was only looking at the upcoming sidewalk a few feet in front of me. After I landed, I asked if she was okay, and she just yelled, "Woo!" Double quote. Talked to 6 police officers on acid. I forgot I'd taken acid, and they seemed friendly, so I approached them and asked them if I could really only get to the train station using the escalator. Cause my dog hates those. One of the officers started asking me questions about the dog, breed, age, etc. But it was my friend's dog and I'm not a big dog person, so I didn't know. Thankfully that wasn't at all suspicious to them. And they explained the obvious to me. That it wasn't possible to get to the station without the escalator. Done. When the dog and I got to the top of the stairs, it finally dawned on me that I'd just talked to a crap ton of officers on acid. Voluntarily. And I felt badass and also open-minded as I'm not from a police-friendly community. I was also very happy that the police officers had been so nice to me and that I learned something about the dog. Survived long enough to retire and collect a pension. I was a lifeguard on the ocean. I was having a pretty shitty day. And on top of it my lunch was postponed an hour. I headed up the beach to the nearest hotel to eat. As I was leaving the restaurant I heard a crowd of people screaming near the pool. As I came down the stairs towards, I saw a young child floating face down in the water. I immediately pulled the kid out and gave rescue breathing until the EMT could arrive. The next day the parents walked down to my stand to thank me. They were originally told by their doctors they couldn't have children. But a few years later were blessed with this young boy. Their only child. The mother told me I was their guardian angel that day. I'm not a very religious person. But this story still gives me goosebumps knowing that I was the right person and the right place at the right time for that boy. I started off angry about my lunchtime change. But this was the outcome. Close bracket. Bought someone a Coke without looking at it and it had their name on it. Their name is Coke. IAJK, what do you mean though, like it just had their name on it? Lol, you gotta dumb it down for me. Accidentally did a full 360 in my car while driving down an icy road in the winter. Nearly shat myself while watching the telephone pole getting closer. But I saved the spin and kept driving along like I meant to do it. Your comment reminded me of my spin out on a muddy road. Damn. I was seriously like, well, I guess it's my time. I lost control and spun out but ended up facing the same direction, no damage to me or the car. My dad was passenger and he lost his shit, yelling at me about how we almost died. But all I could think about was that I am a badass driver with Vin Diesel level skills. My husband and I were driving by a small college, and he noted a sign advertising an upcoming conference on extrasensory perception. I responded, yes. And you don't even have to pre-register. They already know you're coming. My first, last, and only perfect funny. When I was a kid, my cousins and I were outside and they were playing catch with a football. I was sitting on a chair not really paying attention. Stretched out my arm to stretch and at the same time, my cousin missed the ball when it came at him. I stretched out my arm and next thing I know I've caught it perfectly without even looking. With my non-dominant hand, might I add. Told my parents I would take the dog I picked up on the side of the road to the shelter after the 3-day weekend. I think it was Labor Day. Forgot to take her on the morning they opened back up, and somehow she accidentally wound up living with us for 10 amazing years until she passed. I was making eggs for breakfast one morning. I cracked the first egg and threw the shell over my shoulder into the sink. I did this 3 more times and each shell landed directly in the previous shell, forming a 4-egg shell tower. She was nuts. I accidentally caught an interception in high school and scored a touchdown. I was just as surprised to catch it as everyone else, since I was just crossing over, and the next thing I know I see the football flying over me. I instinctually reached up and caught it. And the only thing in my head at that point was run, so I booked it and got a 60-yard touchdown. One time I was driving a kid's bike in small circles. So I went a bit too tight on my circle. Ended up horizontal with my bike. Ending up with just the side of the pedal touching the ground. Did a full 360 turn. Then popped back up like it was some 1000/1000 difficulty BMX move or so much tea. Like, is that even a move for BMX tricks? Not sure, but I did it. Completely on accident, but still. I remember doing this exact thing, but I scraped my knee on the ground instead of the pedal and continued riding. I wasn't even concerned about my knee. My little 8-year-old mind was so focused on my badassery, pain was irrelevant. When I was 17, my friend's girlfriend needed to do some video project for a class she had in college. Since we were the creative type, she asked us if we could help her with it and if we could use my dad's video camera. We had planned this really dumb, ridiculous video involving these puppets we had, and we even made backdrops for it out of old boxes. The problem was we didn't really have any sort of script, so that plan went nowhere after hours of prep. We ended up just drinking instead and thought we would figure something out later. In the meantime, I decided to mess around with the camera and just filmed random things using the many built-in features for a little bit. When I got home the next day, I reviewed the footage I had shot and thought it would make a pretty cool music video. I sorted my music library by length to see what song I had that would roughly fit the amount of video I had. D7 by the Wipers was just about right, and when I played the song on top of what I had, it fit amazingly. I had to extend the final shot with a freeze frame to make it fit all the way. But it was perfect. That was basically all the editing I did. Everything was basically just me pressing record, pause and fking around with the settings and filters. I still think the video is pretty cool for something that just randomly came together. Here it is. Christmas party at a friend's new apt. She'd made the place lovely. After her return from Italy, she's set up her first adult Christmas tree. After dinner it's time for pumpkin pie and hot drinks. I'm getting my tea. From across the room I see someone accidentally brushed past the tree and it begins to wobble and spin, heading for a fall with all of her hand-blown Italian ornaments on it. Somehow I cross the room, unspin the tree, set it back in its proper place, with all of its ornaments intact, and never spilled any tea. In a parking lot, a group of 3 strangers approached my friend. One guy was mad at life and tried to start an unprovoked fist fight with my friend. The 2 other guys went to surround him. I didn't know what to do, so I grabbed them by their collars. They pushed me toward the back of this old school American car, where I jumped onto the back bumper because I had nowhere else to go. The springs on that old car lifted both of them off of the ground. They must have thought I had done it myself. They then looked a little frightened. They then got their friend and quickly left. My dad accidentally had the best acid trip of his life at a Grateful Dead concert. I'm old. My dad is old. This happened way back. At age 18. My dad had to wear a body cast due to surgery for his scoliosis. His buddies heard of a Grateful Dead concert a couple towns over in California, and they invited him along. My dad was laid flat in the back of an old Studebaker station wagon for the ride. When they arrived, my dad's buddies asked him to hide their hits of paper acid in his body cast so they could be discreet. Since all of them had been arrested for possession prior, my dad obliged and all was going well for a bit. Once the Grateful Dead started playing, my dad was dancing around best he could and began to sweat. Cue the paper acid being absorbed into his system, and suddenly he's tripping balls at a once-in-a-lifetime concert. Was playing a local version of dodgeball as a high schooler. I sucked at throwing the ball. I have some sort of issue with my rotator cuff and can't throw overhand. And the school's star baseball pitcher, who was 3 grades above me, mocked me for all to enjoy. I had a little rage moment and side-armed the ball at him, totally expecting it to hit the ground as I stormed off. Instead, the ball flew directly at his nuts. It had that nice indoor tennis thump. Great impact with real good inertia. And he groaned in pain. Target shooting at a friend's house. He wasn't having much luck with his new rifle, so of course I was giving him shitty big time. He got a bit frustrated, handed the rifle to me and said, "If you can talk all that shit, here you do better than I did." He told me to shoot the bowling pin that hangs by twine on the left. I sarcastically replied, "I'll shoot that BTCH down by taking out the string." I put it up to my shoulder, aimed for the center of the bowling pin and pulled the trigger. By some freak chance I hit the twine and the bowling pin dropped. I was celebrating because I honestly had not aimed at the twine. He was a bit salty until I told him that I have no fucking idea how I hit that string because I wasn't even aiming for it, lol. I was taking a tour of one of the US government buildings. I believe the Capitol, but I'm not sure. During a school trip. During the tour, the guide showed us a chandelier and asked if anyone knew how much it was worth. Flippantly, I answered something like 4.7 million, like I already knew the answer. Turns out, it was the correct answer. The tour guide said, "Sounds like someone's been doing his research." None of my friends believed me when I told them that I hadn't already known the answer. I believed me though. I, female, agreed to play pool with some drunk guy in a bar. I am not great at pool, but I'm better than most people I know just because I've played it a lot. I really enjoy it. It was getting crowded and a bunch of people were waiting to play, but the drunk dude was taking forever and he really sucked at pool. I had 2 balls left on the table but at opposite ends. Someone behind me said something like, "Make this combo and I'll get you a pitcher of beer." Without looking up I said, "You got it," and actually pulled off the most impressive shot I've ever done. Everyone in the bar started cheering. So, I'm riding my fixie, going as fast as I can. But all of a sudden the chain pops off and gets stuck, throwing me into the longest, loudest, most dramatic skid across the asphalt ever. Note: I did not know how to skid, so I'm just holding on for dear life, trying to stay upright, and come to an abrupt, screeching halt, literally right next to an entire row of about 20 police officers on bikes who are blocking off the street. I look over and they are all looking at me, clearly thinking I was trying to intimidate them on purpose. 2 of them ended up giving me their number. Don't ask me why. It was a weird day.